Thomas Paine, Thomas Paine, Thomas Paine, Sam Adams, Sam Adams, Sam Adams, Benjamin Franklin, Benjamin Franklin, Benjamin Franklin. These men spoke up for what they thought was right. From their courage came such documents as the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution of the United States. From their willingness to speak what was sometimes unpopular but right, we enjoy such liberties as freedom of speech, the right to keep and bear arms, and freedom of religion. There are those who still wish to oppress our freedoms, and there are still patriots willing to stand up and defend life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Men like Zeb Bell, who honor our founding fathers and what they stood for. It's now time for Zeb at the ranch, speaking up and defending your freedoms. Brought to you by Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers and all of the other great advertisers on the program. And now, Zeb Bell.
Sir William Connolly of Scotland said this: "Before you judge a man, walk a mile in his shoes. After that, who cares? He's a mile away, and you've got his shoes." Good morning, everybody. Here comes Kate Smith, and God Bless America, followed by a Patriot with our Pledge of Allegiance on a Tuesday. Good morning. And a good morning to you and yours. I'm Zeb Bell, Zeb at the Ranch on this Tuesday morning, September 22nd already. My goodness sakes. Brought to you by our major sponsor, your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers. All 7 locations serving you with a very safe, clean environment and, of course, the best in tires. Along with our friends at Burley Physical Therapy and Rehabilitation at 1263 Bennett Avenue, Suite 2 in Burley, helping you get back to being you. Right now, let's go to the phone line and have our Pledge of Allegiance. Good morning.
Good morning. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Very well done, my friend. Thank you very much. And right now, let's head for the weather forecast. That's brought to you by K&R Rental at 256 South, 600 West of Heyburn, right on the Burley-Paul Highway. You can't miss them. If you do, you shouldn't be driving anyway. But I'll tell you what, they're very obvious right there with all the best of tools and equipment for you to finish any kind of a task or construction project. Long and short-term rental on their equipment, K&R Rental. Number to call, 678-3122. And right now, here's Gina with the weather.
Not too shabby for the first day of fall. Here is a look at your weather forecast. Still going to be a little bit smoky for today, but we are expecting sunny skies, high of about 79, a slight breeze out of the west-northwest at about 8 miles an hour. Tonight, mostly clear skies with a low of 47. Mostly sunny, high of 80 is what we're expecting tomorrow. Partly cloudy and 49 tomorrow night. Thursday, sunny skies and 77. By Friday, partly sunny and 67. And that's a look at your weather for Zeb at the Ranch.
And thank you very much, Gina. Always a good job. 54 degrees outside my studio right now. And the weather brought to you by K&R Rental at 256 South, 600 West of Heyburn. Oh, yes, like I said, they've got everything ready for you for those fall jobs you need to hurry and get done before the weather really gets nasty. Check with them today. If you're not sure what kind of tools and equipment you need, they can help. Roger will give you all the information. K&R Rental on the Burley-Paul Highway, 678-3122. Want to give a great big shout out to Daryl's Cleaners. I got to get a hold of Kevin today. I've got to talk to him. Kevin, if you're listening, and you may be, I would like to say I've got to get a hold of you. And they are the best at what they do. The best of dry cleaning that prolongs the life of your clothes. Absolutely. You spent a lot of money on them. So why not take care of them? And that's where Daryl's Cleaners comes in. Absolutely the best at what they do, and they really care. At 1223 Albion Avenue in Burley. You stop in and see them today. By the way, you haven't got time to do your washing? Well, let me tell you, they'll wash, dry, fold, and take care of all your clothes. Just stop in. Daryl's Cleaners in Burley, ready to serve you. Caller, I'll be right there. Stand by. Real quick also, and they opened the doors about, 40 minutes ago, and that's Ramsey Heating and Electric. They get there at about 7:30 in the morning till 5, Monday through Friday. Located at 2600 Overland Avenue in Burley. The number to call, 678-0459. And it goes without saying, all of your heating, cooling, and electrical needs with the best of people, the most experienced. They've been in business almost 7 decades. They know, and they can help you. Ramsey Heating and Electric in Burley, where they provide warm winters and cool summers. Caller, good morning. You're on the air.
Good morning, Zeb, to you and your lovely wife.
Well, she certainly is that. Thank you very much.
Okay, if I sound a little angry, it's because I am.
Uh-oh.
Okay, about a week ago or so, I had a grandson that came down with a real high fever.
Uh-huh.
So, following the protocol that we've been given, he went to urgent care. He had a temperature of 103.
Boy.
They give him an order to go take COVID. Well, that was on Sunday, and so they're not open. So Monday, he went over and took the test. They said it would take from 3 to 5 days to get the results. In the meantime, he called all of his family members that he'd been in contact with, including me, and quarantined himself and his fiancée.
Okay.
They're always trying to do what is right. Okay? So it was 5 days before they got back to him, and he was negative.
Mm-hmm.
In the meantime, he has to pay urgent care $80 for a call, and they want $250 for that test. And now he's lost a week's wages because they took so long to test it. And, I thought that this was not going to be costly because they want people to go and get them tested instead of spreading it around.
Well, Keith, let me stop you here. I'm not at all in favor of how this is being handled in various areas at various costs. And I have my own little boat to float of animosity against the healthcare and medical profession. And I think that state by state, we've seen different things and different ways that they're handled. I'm not a big fan of what's going on. I think the testing should absolutely be prioritized, and there should be absolute. I don't understand why in some cases they can come back in 2 days and others they tell you 5 days. And I don't understand why the costs are different. I don't understand a lot of this, and it's got to be more synchronized and it's got to be more categorized, if you will, in favor of the patient. I agree with you. It's frustrating. It's maddening. The time and effort that this young man took away from his job and scaring his family and everything. It's a mess. It's a mess. And like I said, some states much more proficient than others.
Well, some people who are just barely making ends meet and they know what this cost is going to be, they're not going to go take it. They're just going to go ahead and spread it around. And that's what I don't understand.
Well, wait, I wouldn't say that they're just going to go ahead and spread it around. I don't think people are as calloused as that if they have the...
No.
Well, wait a minute. If you're sick, stay home. I mean, I'm just going to tell everybody, if you're sick, stay home. It's idiocy to go around, I got a cough, I got a sore throat, I'm not feeling good. Well, that's dumb. That's dumb on their part.
But if you suspect you've got a high temperature and everything, you go and check it out. But if you know it's going to cost you $250 or more than that, it'd be about $330, you probably will try to just suffer through it and hope you don't have it.
Well, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm going to look into these cost factors and everything. I'm glad you brought it up, and call me after the program, and I'll do some checking on it. I am not, I laugh at some of these so-called talk show hosts that claim they know everything, and then they put out wrong information. You're not going to get that from me. I'm going to check it out. I'm going to find out about the costs. I'm going to find out about the variables, and then we'll put it on the air. I'm not going to sit there and spew that I'm the Encyclopedia Britannica, because I'm not. I'm going to check it out, and we'll go from there. How's that?
Well, yeah, but what are you going to do about my blood pressure?
You're on your own. Float your own boat, Keith. I have mine to worry about. All right, buddy. Thanks much for your call. Appreciate it. All right.
Bye.
Dino Septic Service. I want to remind you about the great job they do, and doing a job that we don't want to do. I don't want to stand out there pumping a septic tank, looking at the birds flying over, going, woo, boy, I don't like this. Well, I'll tell you what, they do it with a smile on their face. They do so much to help you. Septic tanks and drain fields installed, backhoe services, septic inspections, sewer and sink drain lines cleaned. Yes, sir. You get a hold of it. They've got the most modern of equipment, and they can serve you. What an area they cover here in southern Idaho. My. Dino Septic Service, 436-6526 or 678-1638. In Twin, 735-8281. Fast, fair, friendly service, Dino's Septic Service. All right, let's have some calls. 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. There is going to be a huge, and I'm going to keep announcing this today, tomorrow, and I'm not going to be on the air Thursday. I've got doctor's appointments, but I hope Sharon mentions this. A huge prayer walk in Washington, D.C. this Saturday, the 26th of September. We need more prayer for this country, its condition, its people, and circumstances, more so now than ever. You don't like that? You don't agree with it? Fine. You've got every right to float your own boat, but don't denigrate mine. And I could not agree more that we need more prayer in this country. And a lot of people are putting a lot of time and effort into this, and I hope it's hugely successful in Washington, D.C. coming up this Saturday. Last night at an Ohio rally for President Trump, I don't know if you caught this, but it was outstanding that he honored on stage the two Ohio State high school football players that led their team onto the field here a couple of weeks ago. I mean, it was just awe-inspiring when they announced the home team to come running on the field. Here they come, and these two kids in the lead. Now, I'm not going to call them kids, young men in the lead. One carrying a flag for Blue Lives Matter, honoring the police, of which his father is a policeman. The other boy carrying in a flag in tribute to first responders. And it was right on 9/11, and his father also is a fireman. They ran onto the field, and the crowd is cheering and clapping their hands, and everybody feeling the goosebumps. And then these kids got suspended from high school. Yeah. They got suspended. You heard me talking about this the other day. The wonderful, illustrious, and know-all school board and school administration of that high school said, oh, why, they shouldn't have carried those flags in on Patriot Night. It was Patriot Night. They shouldn't have carried those flags in. Why, that's too divisive. Too divisive? And they suspended these kids, young men, from school. Well, needless to say, all heck broke loose, and the administration did a fast Minnesota shuffle and backtracked and decided that they better stop the suspension and let them back in school, and they are heroes, and they should be. And I just think it's absolutely imperative that we give those kinds of young men and women all the accolades that we can. They stood up. They stood up for what's right. And the school administration absolutely should be humbled and humiliated. President Trump honored them last night, called them up on stage, and I thought it was tremendous. Calls welcome 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. There is something that is spooky and scary. And I mean this. I do not mean to introduce or incorporate fear into your life, but we've got to be realistic that the Democrats and the left, I'm just going to call it like it is, they're evil people. I don't trust any of them. If you've got a Democrat D behind your name or you are of the left, I don't trust you and I don't want you for my friend, because of the platform that you espouse. A 30-plus former bartender, you know who I'm talking about, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, that knows nothing about the real world. She was absolutely in shock when she tried planting something on her sun deck and it grew. Oh, I had no idea. I mean, this is ridiculous. She said a statement the other night in a multiple round of statements that really shocked a lot of people, including yours truly. She was talking about the left and about the power that they should employ against President Trump and against his possible nomination to the Supreme Court and against his possible re-election as president. And she said, let this moment radicalize you. Now let that sink in a little bit. Let this moment in history she's referring to radicalize you. In other words, she's calling on the left and supporters of that evil way of thinking to create more of an onslaught of terrorism in our country until the left gets its way. How else can you interpret that? Let this moment radicalize you. The left is intimidating. They threaten, and they also hurt you to get power and control. I personally have been subject to what the left is trying to do in the 2008 election of Barack Obama. They intimidate you, they come after you, they try to run you in the turf. They will step on you. They will do everything they can to get you off the air. They will go to your sponsors. They will send tapes that are completely fraudulent with misstatements and fraudulent statements. They are evil. I've seen it because it happened to me. And every one of my advertisers at that time nodding their head saying, yes, we know. They were filthy. Filthy. The left in what they try to do. They want violence to scare people into submission. Look what they did at the restaurants in New York City and other places with the evil, sinister, worthless Black Lives Matter. Ran in, spilled plates, harassed the customers, demanded that they raise their fist in honor of Black Lives Matter. Yeah, they were demanding, you better say that you're pledging your allegiance to Black Lives Matter. Raise your fist or else. And then they scattered their food and dumped their wine and their other drinks on the floor. Protesters outside of Mitch McConnell's and Lindsey Graham's home, using the most vile and filthy statements and beating drums all night long and bugles and noise and yelling the vile threats against their lives. This is garbage. This is garbage from garbage people. Caller, good morning. You're on the air.
Good morning again. You know, I was watching a Western movie of Audie Murphy this morning, and it comes so close to being where we're at right now. They were talking about that terrible person, the Raiders, you know, the North and the South were at war with one another, and Quantrell
Right.
formed his own little group. And Lawrenceburg, Kansas, they went in and burned it to the ground. And they did nothing but raid, but they were not affiliated with the North or the South.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where these Black Lives Matter is. They're in the middle somewhere.
No, Black Lives Matter is in the middle of nowhere.
Doing that?
Black Lives Matter is in the middle of nowhere. They're nothing more than a Marxist/communist group of vile, dirty people that absolutely are sinister and want to see the end and the ruination of our country as it is, our moral values. They hate the family situation. They hate Christianity, and they will do all they can to disrupt it. I, in turn, am going to do all I can to disrupt them.
But this is in coordination of it, the Quantrell's Raiders, because of the way they acted. And they were selfish in their thoughts, and they did nothing for either side.
Yeah. Well,
and that's where Black Lives Matter are now.
No.
They're not going to help.
No, they have a side, Keith. I disagree with you. They have a side. They're on the left. They're on the George Soros-funded left that absolutely wants to see the destruction of this country and its value system. Oh, they've got a side, all right, and it's the wrong side. And I, in turn, like I said, I'm going to do all I can to fight them. Thanks, Keith, again. I appreciate that. Stay watching those good old Western movies. Have a good day. Thank you.
I'll do that.
All right, buddy. Thanks. Caller number 2, you're on the air. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, good morning, Zeb. You know, it's so sad that the mainstream media, you know, never tells us anything about Black Lives Matter. I mean, that they're Marxists with the things you just pointed out. They hate God, they hate Christianity, they hate the American culture, the things that brought us up, and they will not bring that out. And so over here, a lot of people still, well, look at the... Obviously, somebody's better wake up the NFL and the NBA, you know, and so forth. I guess the ratings have been way down. But Zeb, you know, we need to keep fighting back. But I wish the Republicans had more pushback. And I mean, some of these people are committing sedition. I mean, they want to destroy the country. I mean, that's sedition, and they should be brought in, tried, and convicted.
Okay, hold on. Let me jump in here, Adrian. Let me jump in here. Let's not put it on a national level, just on a national level. Let's look at it right here locally. How many stories have you seen and heard or read about the negativity of Black Lives Matter in the Times News? How many, Adrian? Quickly.
0.
All right, that's my point. I am sick and tired of letting this idiocy fester right here in the Magic Valley. We had school kids, and we had a lot of kids under 24 years of age not too many weeks ago, about 150 to 200 of them, protesting in favor of Black Lives Matter. That tells me two things. Number one, their parents don't know what is going on, and they're not really talking to their youngsters about what the youngsters are supporting. And number two, the Times News and other media outlets right here locally had better wake up and smell the coffee, because they're also helping to fester an evil situation.
Oh, absolutely. They're complicit with it totally. And yeah, you look through the paper, you're right. I'm one of the few conservative friends that I have, and when we meet as a group, I think I'm the only one that gets a paper. I mean, nobody gets a paper anymore because they're just tired of it. I only get it because I want to see what the other side's saying.
Well, wait a minute. That's not fair to say that nobody gets the... Wait a minute, Adrian. Nobody getting the paper anymore. That's not true, or they wouldn't be printing a paper. A lot of people do. And I get it. Wait a minute. I get the paper because I'm just like you. I want to see what the evil is that's out there and being promoted in our Times News newspaper. And I'm going to yell and scream at them for some of their do's and don'ts that they promote inside that paper, but people are still getting it, and unfortunately some people believe some of the garbage that's in there, i.e. even the op-ed pieces by Eden's Jim Jones. I mean, this is ridiculous.
Yeah, I totally agree. Jim Jones has gone totally leftist, socialist in his thinking, anti-Trump for sure. But you're right, and it's sad that we... I'm glad you bring up the local thing, because I've got friends that have given up also trying to get a letter to the editor in. Now, I've had a letter in for 10 days now, still hasn't been published, and because I made a statement that's not politically correct about the climate change thing. They're making a big deal about that. And I point out the facts, not just the rhetoric and the consensus. The consensus is, in 10 years we're going to be destroyed by carbon dioxide made by man. That's a bunch of BS if I ever heard it.
Well, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is going to be leading the charge as perhaps the energy czar of the Biden administration. Oh, pardon me, my faux pas. I meant to say the Harris administration. And she has about as much knowledge about energy as a goat.
Yeah, it's just incredible. And these people, including Idaho Power, they say, well, we're going to be totally green by 2045. And you realize, unless there's already some juice in the lines from coal, natural gas, hydro, you just shut everything down and go green energy.
Yeah.
Nothing's going to happen.
Amen.
The energy's not, you've got to already have the pipeline full of good fossil fuel energy or hydro in order to make it work.
Absolutely.
Nobody talks about that.
We're going to be talking about that this morning at 9:06 with Dan Kish. Adrian, I got to run. I got a commercial break I've got to take care of. I'm past the bottom of the hour.
Have a great week.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Bye now.
Denny's Restaurant, 611 North Overland in Burley, and another location of America's Diner, 291 Pole Line Road in Twin Falls. Oh, my. You go in, they seat you at a table or a booth, and you pick up the menu, and you go, holy mackerel, how am I going to make a decision with all these great, great dishes for breakfast, lunch, dinner, anytime, all the time, all the desserts? Wow. And served by excellent, really nice people at Denny's Restaurant, the home of Zeb's Lunch Bunch. I urge you to stop in and see these people today. I told you I had an announcement today, and I do. I am not prepared with my lovely wife, Deanne, and her health condition to have a lunch bunch for this month, but it is looming on the horizon. Stay tuned, because it may not be on the same time for this next month. We're going to maybe have it earlier because a lot of people have called, and I'm just telling you, it's not going to take place in the next week, but we will be making a decision very soon. Denny's Restaurant, America's Diner, the home of Zeb's Lunch Bunch, and you can stop in anytime and enjoy the great food. Calls are welcome, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. Give me a call. We are... And you don't have to be a rocket scientist or have a national news program. We are on the verge of a big, big fight in this country. And the fight is going to be for our value system, families, going to church, and living according to our United States Constitution. If you think I am wrong or exaggerating, please pour yourself a cup of coffee and do your own diligent research, and then all of a sudden you might go, holy moly. Yeah, it's happening. The left wants as much disaster and sinister happenings to get you under their thumb. Caller, good morning. You're on the air.
Good morning. I just wanted to give you a news flash. At about 8 o'clock, I was watching Fox News, and you were ready to come on the air, so I was trying to listen to both. But on Fox News, they announced that they had Mitt Romney on there, and I didn't get a chance to hear all he had to say. But the end game was he would vote for a nominee.
Well, wait a minute. Let's preface some of your remarks. And yes, I did hear this, and yes, I was following it on the computer, etc. He said if he thought the person was qualified, he would vote.
I'm sure you're correct.
Well, Keith, I don't like Mitt Romney. I don't care who's offended by that. I don't know what your thoughts are. Maybe you think he can walk on water and everything else, but I think he absolutely has blown it in politics. People in his own home state of Utah just kind of snicker and tee-hee a little bit because of what he is and what he's done. I don't trust him. And I think he's been a turncoat for the party. I think he's been a turncoat for President Trump. He has not shown any respect whatsoever. I don't trust him.
Well, and I don't think he's living up to his religion.
Well, I'm not going to bring religion into it. I'm not going to bring religion into this program. Don't you either. I'm just saying that I don't think as a politician he's done what he should have done.
No, he hasn't, and I have turned against him myself, and I would have done almost anything to see him beat Barack Obama, but it wasn't meant to be.
Well, it was different times and different circumstances. I agree with you. And thanks to a so-called news journalist, Candy Crowley, which she absolutely tipped the apple cart over in favor of Obama and protected Obama during that debate, Romney kind of got shoo-shooed out the back door and never had a chance. So I agree with you. Thank you very much, Keith, for your call. Appreciate it.
I am concerned about this debate coming up of Chris Wallace.
No, I'm not.
Whose side he's on.
No, and you can't be on a side. Now, there again, I'm going to have to correct you, my dear, dear friend. The moderators shouldn't be on any side. The moderators should absolutely throw darts and needles at each side to make sure that he gets the correct answer.
Well, you're true to a certain degree, but I think he is leaning to the left.
Well, he always has leaned to the left. There's no doubt about it that Chris Wallace leans to the left. There's no doubt from his family heritage, Mike Wallace as his father. Yeah, sure. But I will tell you this. If you'll look at transcripts of shows past of Chris Wallace and talking about Biden and Biden's senility, talking about his lack of going out and doing a campaign, and there was a lot of praise for President Trump and the way he's doing this and going out and seeing the people. I honestly will tell you this, until I'm proven wrong, I think Chris Wallace is going to do the most fair job of any of the possible moderators for the presidential debates.
I guess we'll just have to wait and see.
Bingo. Thank you, Keith. Appreciate it. Have a good day. Thank you.
Bye.
Don't forget Barry Equipment and Rental. I stand behind what I said. I don't like Chris Wallace. I don't. I think he's sometimes very sinister and lying in the weeds, just trying to find a trip up. But I think of all the moderators that they have lined up for these three presidential debates, I think he will be the most fair and will be the attack dog, if you will, if something is said and or done or misstated. I really believe that. Barry Equipment and Rental, sales, service, and parts. If you don't, give me a call, 436-2244. Barry Equipment Rental, 159 West Highway 30 in Burley. I've started this ad 6 times. 465 Addison Avenue West in Twin with Eli and the group and the Nampa location. And let me tell you, when you've got the job of lifting and digging and pushing and carrying and grading and leveling, you want the equipment now. They've got it. They've got all the Bobcats. They've got all the trenchers. They've got all the scissor lifts. They've got all the Doosan equipment and excellent lease rates and great financing programs to buy. And if you're not sure how to run it, no problem. They teach you. Barry Equipment and Rental, Burley, Twin Falls, and Nampa. You get a hold of these good folks today. Come on, folks. Light up the phone line. Give me a jingle, 436-2244. Caller, good morning. You're on the air.
Good morning, Zeb.
Hi, Linda.
Hi. My cousin called me from Fayetteville, North Carolina yesterday and said that her daughter and her dear friend went to the Trump rally at the airport in Fayetteville.
Mm-hmm.
And she said, I wish I could have gone, but it would have been too hard to take me in a wheelchair and get me in and out and whatever. But she said it was a big rally, and she said people were happy, and they were clapping and cheering and showing their support, and I think that's a wonderful piece of information to have in your heart.
Let me tell you this, Linda, and I got to be really cautious about how I say this. I am very concerned about this election. I am very concerned about the evils of the left cheating, and especially trying to push with the onslaught of mail-in voting. I do not trust the left, and I think they will do anything they can to change the net result. However, here's my point. You have solidified the attitude and enthusiasm of President Trump's rallies, and you're not seeing that with the numbers and or the verbiage at anything to do with Joe Biden or Kamala Harris. I honestly feel, and tell me if you think I'm wrong, that here we are, 42 days from the election, and I honestly feel that it is possible that Trump is going to win in a tidal wave, and the pollsters will ride the crest of that wave until they drown.
You know, that's what I am praying for. I have that feeling, and I think that, you know, it scares me, the percentage of people that don't come out to vote.
That scares me.
People need to come out. Their vote matters.
You know, that's the thing that is going to let evil persist and prevail in this country if we take a lazy attitude of, well, my vote doesn't matter, I'm too busy, I got to rearrange my sock drawer, oh, gee, I've been wanting to clean up the garage for the last 3 years, and I think that's a good day to do it. I hate excuses, and I hate lazy people that use patriotism, but they don't support it.
Right, yes. And it does matter, because every one of those votes is another drop in that bucket, and that bucket will overflow if we have enough drops in it.
I love the way you put that.
Each person puts a drop in.
There you go. In other words, we're all a bunch of drips, right? God bless you, Linda.
Oh, dear.
Thank you so much for your call. Really, I appreciate it. God bless you. Thanks so much. I love that lady.
And I hope all continues to go well for you in Deanna.
Oh, thank you. She is a sweetheart. I appreciate it.
Oh, I know it. I know it. Prayers will keep coming.
Thank you very much. Take care. You know, my biggest worry, and I was alluding to this a few minutes ago, is that we, the American people, we're not immune from the heavy-handed actions of the left. Just because we live here in southern Idaho, we're not immune. Just because we live here in southern Idaho and we think that, oh, well, these protesters and all these evil people that are out saying they're going to do this, that, and the other, it can't happen here. Why not? I think we need to be more prepared for the defense and safety of our family and our property more so than ever. I don't trust what's happening on the left. I think they will stoop to any level to make sure that they keep control. We're going to do a weather forecast, and then I'll take some more of your calls. And the weather, of course, from Mount Harrison Audiology and Hearing Aids. And have you heard the term use it or lose it? Well, with hearing loss, you could also be risking cognitive decline. I'm telling you, there's so much involved in good hearing, and I urge you, I underline the word urge, to call the number of Mount Harrison Audiology and Hearing Aids and get an appointment and have your hearing checked. Get a hearing screening. Yes, I did. I'm so glad I did. Number to call, 312-0957. That number again, 312-0957. Mount Harrison Audiology and Hearing Aids. And right now, here's Gina with the weather.
Not too shabby for the first day of fall. Here is a look at your weather forecast. Still going to be a little bit smoky for today, but we are expecting sunny skies, high of about 79, a slight breeze out of the west-northwest at about 8 miles an hour. Tonight, mostly clear skies with a low of 47. Mostly sunny, high of 80 is what we're expecting tomorrow, partly cloudy and 49 tomorrow night. Thursday, sunny skies and 77. By Friday, partly sunny and 67. And that's a look at your weather for Zebit Duran.
Thank you, Gina. Always a great job. And again, I want to remind you, call the number of Mount Harrison Audiology and Hearing Aids. They can help your hearing problems. Don't let it diminish, please. Number is 312-0957. They're right behind the Minidoka County Hospital, across from the emergency room. Mount Harrison Audiology and Hearing Aids. All right, give me a call, 436-2244. Whoops, almost knocked the mic over. 1-866-927-4587. I'd love to hear from you. I think we're going to see, I'm really going to schedule that whole night next Tuesday for just sitting in my recliner taking notes on that debate. Now, what are we going to see? We may see a... how do I want to say this? Medically induced and enhanced Joe Biden. We may see a vibrancy because somebody gave him something that, man, he's ready to run the Kentucky Derby and not get on the horse. We may see a man that is temporarily going to be a Spitfire, but I doubt it. We may see the man that the other day was reading an answer off a teleprompter, and he said out loud, hey, wait up a minute, I missed that last line. That's the man that we might see, and I believe we will. I think Joe is going to come apart at the seams like a cheap $29 suit. I think the threads are going to start to be shown on television. I think he's going to make a lot of verbal faux pas. I think he's going to not be able to withstand the attack, which is necessary, by President Donald Trump over issues on the economy especially. And then with Biden saying stupid, frivolous things that have never been fact-checked or never been corrected, like the other day saying that with the nearly 200,000 deaths, the deaths here in America could have all been stopped, eliminated, if Trump would have done a better job. That kind of an insinuation is such a blowhard statement. And I know that's going to come up in this debate, and it should. They're always, including our own illustrious Times News, fact-checking everything that Donald Trump says and or does. But when you use and I hate that word all, because Joe Biden said all those could have been saved if he'd done a better job. That's what Biden said about Trump. Well, that's not true. You know that. But it's so easy for a politician, especially one running for the presidency, to get away with sleazy statements. Calls welcome, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. I want to go on the record this morning, and I had a couple of calls yesterday from some folks saying, are you in favor of Donald Trump announcing the nominee for the Supreme Court now? And I said, absolutely, yes. Do you understand what I'm saying? And then I had a pollster call and asked the same thing, and I said, all I'm going to say to you is yes. I want the nomination of the Supreme Court nominee now. And then I hung up the phone. I'm not going to give them any other information that could possibly skew what I had said. I think it's absolutely imperative that we get the Supreme Court filled where it should be, at number 9. Number 9. And the Democrats are not happy with this. If you know some Democrats, they want to change the entire attitude and complexion of the Supreme Court. The number that they have used, Schumer and others, is that by packing, which means loading up on more justices, they want to see the Supreme Court numbers possibly go to 14 judges. What a keystone comedy that would be. And then, of course, the push to add more states, which, of course, would bring more representatives and senators in from Democratic areas. I'm telling you, folks, we really got to be careful. Really careful that the left does not twist and turn America completely out of shape permanently. Calls welcome 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. And then we have my absolute favorite politician. I hold him on a pedestal as being the sharpest knife in the drawer with the sharpest wit of any person in politics in D.C. today. Louisiana Senator John Kennedy wins that award, hands down, slam dunk, home run, touchdown. He came out yesterday after Nancy Pelosi had made the statement that she can impeach Donald Trump for anything she wants to, and she might do it. And Louisiana Senator John Kennedy thinks that Nancy Pelosi has eaten a bunch of Tide Pods. I love it. Calls welcome 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. I'm going to quickly talk about my major sponsor, and that's, of course, our Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers. All 7 locations serving you. There's the key word right there, with the best of tires. And you better get ready for fall. I hate to say this, but also winter driving. And they've got all the tread designs. They've got all the sizes for all of your vehicles. And you might as well check those brakes. Boy, you hit the stop sign the other day and whoo, you were kind of worried. Well, go in. They've got the best of brake service right there with highly trained technicians. Front end alignment, shocks and struts, batteries. Oh, there's another thing to worry about. Make sure your battery's in good shape going into the colder mornings to turn that engine over. They've got the best in batteries. James and Buell, Dan on Pole Line in Twin Falls, Lane and Rupert, Mike and Jerome, Dave on Blue Lakes and Twin, the Twist family in Paul, and my buddy Trent on Overland and Burley. The best, your Magic Valley, Les Schwab Tire Centers. Caller, I've got exactly 2 minutes. Go, you're on the air.
You bet. Ruth Bader Ginsburg could have retired when Obama was president, and then they could have picked a judge, but they had a Republican Senate his last couple years, so she thought Hillary was going to win, and Hillary could replace her.
Mm-hmm.
Little did she know, President Trump blew them right out of the water.
Hey, let me interrupt you real quick, Doug, and I know we're short on time, but do you believe that on her deathbed, her last phrase on this earth was, I don't want to be replaced or have my position replaced by Donald Trump? I don't believe that.
Anything that comes out of a Democrat's mouth, I do not believe until I find out for sure that it's true.
Amen.
They're worse than a used car salesman. I'm sorry, Pete, but when their lips are moving, they're lying.
Yeah, look out. No, I agree with you, but I'm very concerned, and I mean this, and quickly respond to this. I'm very concerned as to if the proceedings, and they're all legal, they're legal as the dickens to put a new Supreme Court seat in there, I'm afraid what the left is going to do. Quickly, I've got 30 seconds.
Yeah, they're going to try to, if it's a female, they're going to throw all sorts of stuff at her. And if it's a male, there's going to be 100 people, 100 gals come out of the woodwork says they raped her in high school.
Absolutely. It's disgusting.
So, the left has shown their deal, what they're going to do and capable of doing with Kavanaugh and how evil evil they can be. And every one of them accusations against Kavanaugh was false.
Absolutely. I got to run. Give us your 10-second spiel real fast.
All right, everybody, let's do what we can for our senior centers. Let's donate to them, volunteer, and go eat there, and you'll leave with a full tummy and a full heart.
What a way to end the hour. Thank you very much, Doug. Appreciate it. Going to head for the news. I'll be back in about 7 minutes. Zeb at the Ranch. Don't you go away. Oh, here we go. Hour number 2, and we've got a lot of great things going on this hour. Zeb at the Ranch. I'm going to sneeze. Do you ever have that when you're talking to somebody and you feel that little tickle and you're going to sneeze? I know it's going to happen. I'm just waiting for the exact moment. I feel better. Brought to you by your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers, all 7 locations serving you in a very safe, clean environment, and, of course, the best in tires. And along with our friends at Burley Physical Therapy and Rehabilitation at 1263 Bennett Avenue, Suite 2 in Burley, helping you get back to being you. Right now, this good word for Western Waste Services.
From the canyons of the Snake River and all across southern Idaho, we're all at the Georgia struggle. Western Waste Services, we care about our community, our resources, and this free land. Western Waste Services is landing ahead. Always at Georgia struggle.
Western Waste Services, don't forget, if you're in the middle of harvest, they've got all the porta potties for you to get at the end of the field. By golly, call them. And, of course, if you're not getting your garbage picked up every week, you can call and get on the route service. You want to clean out maybe the basement or the house before all the folks start coming over for the holidays, which are right around the corner. You can get dumpsters in various sizes. Holy smokes, they've got it all for you, along with excellent service. Western Waste Services, always at your disposal. Call them at 734-6969. In just a second, we're going to talk to my dear friend Dan Kish, and stand by for that. But I also want to remind you about Joel Heward, his family and staff over at Hanson Mortuary, 710 6th Street in Rupert. They are tremendous people that are serving families that have just lost a loved one, and always providing the families they serve with the best possible support and comfort, and upholding the highest ethical standards with unquestioned integrity. Please remember this number and call 436-5636. Hanson Mortuary, 710 6th Street in Rupert with Joel Heward. And Joel also serving you and your family at Morrison Payne Funeral Home on East Main in Burley. You know, it goes without saying that if you've got some aches and pains and you're recouping from a surgery and you're kind of gimping and limping along, and then also maybe you've had an accident, same circumstance, wow, you want to get back to being you. Well, I know the place to go, and that's Burley Physical Therapy and Rehabilitation at 1263 Bennett Avenue, Suite 2 in Burley. It goes without even an argument that they are the best at what they do. Nick Greenwell, the heads up all the physical therapists there, and each and every one absolutely know all the exercises that are going to best benefit you, and the use of the hydrotherapy pool. Oh my, you better call today. 678-1191. 678-1191. Burley Physical Therapy and Rehabilitation at 1263 Bennett Avenue, Suite 2 in Burley. And it also goes without saying that every time I have this gentleman on my program, I learn a lot about energy or the lack thereof, and I'm talking about American Energy Alliance. Dear friend, Dan Kish. Good morning, Dan. How are you?
Good, Zeb, and I hope you are as well.
Yes, and my lovely bride is sitting approximately 10 feet away from me in this office and doing much better. Thank you for all your kind thoughts and prayers.
Oh, God bless her and you and your audience. And I'm glad to see it's just prayers are answered, Zeb.
You know, I've got to ask you, and sometimes I don't know if you kind of snicker at my ignorance, which you can if you want to, because I ask questions from the heart about energy, because I listen to the likes of Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and others on the left, and I just wonder, how in the world did they ever get out of kindergarten and pass crackers and milk? And some of the statements that they make, including Joe Biden the other night when he was asked about energy, help me on this one. He said, the minute that I'm president, I am going to come forth and demand that all over the interstate system there will be over 500,000 charging stations for electric vehicles. Really?
Well, I tell you, Zeb, I don't know. I wasn't around when they established the gas station system in the United States, but I don't think it was because some edict from Washington, D.C., or even a state government. Do you?
No.
People saw a need. I mean, originally it was kerosene, right, for lanterns and stuff like that, and then along comes electricity, and then the internal combustion engine, and you didn't have to run out there and string together a bunch of gas stations. They popped up because people in their own interest and in the interest of serving the public did that. See, everything in their mind comes from the government. Everything. Which is scary because, you know, we have a constitution that basically for the first time in history put a fence around government so they wouldn't jump out and stop on our rights or take our freedoms or liberties or anything like that. And that was the beauty and the ingenuity and the God-given ability of the founders to be able to do that, to say, no, we're going to fence you in for the first time in history. We're not going to let you walk all over us. Stay in the pen and do what we tell you can do and leave us alone to pursue our own interests and everything else. But for them, everything stems from the government because that means, you know, there's more power in Washington and more decisions, and you got to ask them for permission to do this, that, and the other thing. That's not what our founders intended. And so stringing together, while it's natural for them to assume that, well, gee, why can't we just do this because that would solve a lot of potential problems, in reality it would create a huge number of problems, and somebody's got to pay for that, right? And you don't have a choice when they stick you with the bill. They have the guns, and they want the power too. So I'd be a little leery of that.
Well, I'm sitting here. We got a call, and we're going to take that call in just a minute. But what he's basically saying is that he's going to provide 500,000 charging stations. That's help me if I make a mistake on the math. That's 10,000 charging stations per state. Simply put, Dan, before we take this call, where in the blazes are they going to get the power for 10,000 per state?
Well, on top of that, where are they going to get the land? Because remember, it takes an hour and a half, something like that, just to get them up to 80 with the supercharging sort of things that they're talking about. You have to wait at the gas station. It's no longer just pull in, fill her up. You got to pull in and take a load off while the thing's charging. And if that's the case, then all of a sudden, how big's the parking lot got to be?
Oh my, yeah.
So because everybody's got to take a load off and wait. So maybe they can put a laundromat in there. People can do their wash while they're waiting for their car to charge.
Oh my goodness! You know, you brought up another instance with the land. I tell you what, it just boggles my mind. Let's take this call. Caller, good morning. You're on the air. Quickly.
Good morning to you, Dan. I gave Zeb the answer yesterday, but now I will give it to you. At each charging station, we will plant a currant bush, and that will solve our problem.
Yeah.
Right?
A currant bush, Dan. Did you get the joke?
I apologize I guess I'm too much of a city slicker. What do we got?
Well, there's a bush called a currant bush, and the joke is that if you plant a currant bush, i.e., it'll create the power. It's way over a lot of people's heads.
They'd like that. You can plug it into the current of the river too.
Yeah. There you go. Thank you, caller. I appreciate that.
My real question is, are they going to have panels there at each station? And if they do, that's going to take up quite a bit of real estate. And if not, they're going to have to run cables for hundreds of miles to accomplish the same thing.
Absolutely.
It's not feasible.
Well,
Thank you.
You're welcome, and Keith, I appreciate your call. Dan, this whole thing, honestly, I'm just an old hick from the southern part of Idaho. I'm a cowboy, and I can't understand how Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and the Democrats can look at a camera or tell a newspaper reporter that they're going to get this implemented right during their administration starting next year if they're elected. This is insanity.
Well, yeah, I mean, here's the difference, Eb. They basically think the American people are stupid. They think we're dumb. So they just say, and there are a lot of people who are, to be honest with you. It's not that they're dumb. They're busy with their families or their work or something, or watching, Entertainment Tonight or whatever it is they enjoy. But the point of it is, most of the stuff that they propose is just absolute nonsense. When you start putting a pencil to paper, and they don't want copper mines, but they want to string the entire United States with power. They don't want they want to protect the land, but they want to cover it all with solar panels imported from China.
Yeah.
They love the birds, but put up those windmills and they can whack them left and right, especially the migratory ones and the predatory birds, which should be protected. They're good at keeping things down, calling the herd, if you will.
Yep.
So, long and short of it is, they know nothing about the way things work. They just propose it. It's like children, painting a picture without any idea of what it is they're painting.
Absolutely.
But it sounds good, Oh, that sounds good, yeah.
I've got another couple of questions for you, but we'll take this caller quickly. Caller, you're on the air.
Hi, thank you for taking my call. My one quick question is, if that thing was implemented to do those electrical charges things, what if we get an EMP attack? Oh boy, we'd really be out of luck, wouldn't we? Thanks for your time.
Go ahead, Dan. Respond, please.
Your caller's a very bright lady. I mean, on the one hand, they say we have to worry about EMP and its potential consequences, and cyber terrorism, by the way, for our grid.
Yep.
But all of the things that they add to the grid, here we are taking Chinese solar panels. They make 80% of the world's solar panels. And all those parts for the windmills and all the inverters and all the transformers and all the stuff that they make in China that are part of this system that they want. Because, make no mistake about it, the Green New Deal is a Red New Deal. It's Red China.
Yep.
That's who makes this stuff, not us. We make 1% of the world's solar panels. So, at the end of the day, they're talking about taking that stuff, plugging it into our grid, and then at the same time they say, gee, we're worried about cyber attacks. It's crazy. And we have a perfectly good system. We can harden it in ways. We've got all the energy in the world right here under our feet and under North America. And the idea that we're going to import it all from China and be dependent upon them so they can flip a switch in Beijing and turn off our lights in Boise doesn't make any sense.
Well, to the callers we've had so far, it just shows that we've got a lot of people here with common sense and they understand what's going on. Caller, quickly, you're on the air. Go ahead, please.
Dan, this is Earl Warden. I grew up with a story from a boiler man that served on the Saratoga, and 1934. And it was, the props were steam-driven props, drives. And then later on in about 36, 37, it was converted from steam-driven generators to electrically driven props. And this gentleman that I grew up with told me that, yes, the Saratoga ran really good, but it would run really straight and good, but then it was dead in the water because it took crude oil tankers time to catch up with it and refuel it.
Mm-hmm.
And in President Trump's speech yesterday, he mentioned the fact about electromagnetic catapults on the newer aircraft carriers that are not working and they're inefficient, and going back to steam-driven catapults back on our aircraft carriers today, and the billions of dollars that are wasted.
All right. Dan, I'll have Dan respond on the air. I'm getting short on time. Go ahead, Dan, please.
Yeah, your caller is absolutely right. The president's right. The new carrier that they have, they spent enormous amounts of money changing over a system that worked perfectly fine, and now they're having to go back and retrofit them because all this newfangled stuff with the electromagnetic thrust for catapulting planes doesn't work. And it's not to say it won't work sometime in the future, but, there used to be a commercial, we will sell no wine before it's time. I don't remember even who that was, but that's going back a long time, maybe Ernest Gallo or something.
I think it was, yeah.
You can't sell wine before it's time. And the president, the one thing I love about President Trump is he's just a common sense guy. He's not against stuff. He just says, this makes no sense. When we got all this energy under our feet, why would we throw that all out and start with something that makes us more dependent upon these people? This makes no sense.
Well, I got to ask you another question here again, pardon my naivete, but when you start talking about transitioning the entire transportation business in the United States, literally overnight, if, God help us all, Biden and Harris become president and vice president, are there factories now that are capable of meeting the demand for great big truck batteries for our transportation system? Are there batteries available for all the farm equipment to run? I mean, what are we talking about here?
Well, Zeb, yeah, there are factories. They're in China.
Aha.
That's the whole point. The very systems that they're talking about. I mean, China controls 80% of the batteries, these lithium-ion batteries. We control 10%. Now, that's not to say that we can't build a factory, but, the Chinese can build stuff real quick. They don't sit around waiting for what the Sierra Club tells them to do. They just build them. And they build the supply chains, and they build the mines, and they mine, and they refine the minerals. This is what they do. And you talk about a Trojan horse. I mean, it isn't even a Trojan horse. It's got a big red Chinese flag draped across its front, and they're welcoming it inside. This is of course, the United States could do as well as any country. I'll put Americans, but the Chinese have been working through these international organizations and these green groups here in the United States to push forward all this stuff so that they could use coal to make all the stuff that we're required to buy because our government would tell us that we have to buy it. Trump's having none of that, and unfortunately, his competitors are.
You know, one final thought here I want you to expand on a little bit, Dan, and we've talked about this in the past, but I've had callers raise questions about it again. You know, I don't think people in this country understand the transition costs that are going to affect them. When you have someone like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez saying, we're going to see the elimination of all the fossil fuel engines and stop the cars and the trucks, what about the poor guy that owns like 8 or 10 farm trucks and he uses his trucks for hauling spuds at harvest? What about the guy that's got a fleet of trucks maybe for a plumbing and heating business? What about the ordinary guy that needs to have a 10-year-old vehicle get back and forth to work? They can't afford to lay out $65,000, $70,000 for a new electric vehicle. I mean, this is insane.
Yeah, no, I mean, all of it is insane, Zeb, honestly. These are the sorts of things that take generations in order to do properly. If they happen, and then only if the product is good. I mean, you know, the horse and buggy didn't go, wasn't banned because the government said there should be no horse and buggies. It's because somebody came along and made a better product. That's the way the world works, because that means that people are voting with their dollars and with their common sense, saying this works better for me than this does. But the idea that somehow the government's going to give you no choice, take away your choice and your liberty to make that choice, and force you to do something, and somehow that's going to happen miraculously, you know, they can't even deliver the mail on time.
Okay, we've got time for one more call. Call, I'm going to limit you to 30 seconds with your question. Real fast. Go, please.
Okay. We live in Idaho, Zeb and I do, and there's a lot of factories, manufacturers and that sort of thing that are wanting to come to Idaho because of the low cost of energy. Now, how can solar overcome that, or wind?
Okay.
The wind always blows in Idaho, but the sun doesn't always shine.
Amen. I'm going to have the Dan answer that question real fast, please. I'm almost out of time.
Yeah, I was just going to say, Zeb, the reason people want to come to Idaho because of low power prices is because of the dams.
Yep.
Because of hydroelectric power.
Absolutely.
Which the Greens and their political backers don't support. In fact, they want to take the dams down. That is the beauty of Idaho's low power price. The rest of the stuff is nonsense, honestly. There's no reason. All that'll do is drive up the costs. Ontario just dumped its law they passed 10 years ago requiring all this kind of nonsense because they didn't get any jobs from green energy. All they did was drive up the price of electricity to the highest price in North America, and they got smart and dumped it.
Yep.
But there's a lot of damage because now a lot of people are poorer because they're paying a lot more for energy than they should have had to, just because some politicians thought it was a grand idea and some lobbyists with these companies got to them.
This man is the best, and I'm so proud to call him a friend. Dan Kish with the American Energy Alliance. I cannot wait for next Tuesday to have you back on the show. Thank you, my dear friend. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Zeb. Great.
All right, buddy. I just love having him on the show because he's going to tell you directly, straight out, what it is and what the truth is, and I appreciate that. Holy moly, I've got to run, and I got to tell everybody about Denny's Restaurant, 611 North Overland in Burley. Oh, the food is tremendous. I am a breakfast nut. I mean, I'll have breakfast at 8 o'clock at night. I just love breakfast. That's my favorite meal. And you go in there to Denny's America's Diner and open up the menu and can you have fun ordering all the different kinds of breakfast? Lunch, dinner, anything all the time, and great dessert menu, too. And I said, America's Diner, Denny's Restaurant, 611 North Overland in Burley and 291 Pole Line Road in Twin Falls. You stop in and enjoy great eating with really nice people at Denny's Restaurant. Want to also give a great big shout out we got to take the time right now before my next guest at Let's Ride. Oh, get out of Dodge City, and I mean hit the hills and enjoy a little bit of the outdoors of southern Idaho before that snow falls. Let's Ride, 270 Highway 24 between Rupert and the World. Oh, my goodness sakes, they've got a showroom full of fun. All the side-by-sides, all the four-wheelers, all the accessories. What are you waiting for? They're open Monday through Friday, 9 to 6, Saturdays, 9 to 2. And besides all that, they've got an excellent service department to keep you running. Let's Ride. 270 Highway 24 between Rupert and the World. It's true, where the fun is sold. I'll tell you what, I know another business over in that neck of the woods, or that part of the desert, if you will, that absolutely serves you with the best of insurance, health insurance, life insurance, retirement planning, employee benefits, all of this and more at Cameron and Siemens Insurance, Highway 24 in Rupert. Right on the curve as you're going into Rupert. You can't miss it. If you do, you shouldn't be driving. Anyway, don't forget to check it out today. Make a call to them. Make an appointment at 436-4424. That number again, 436-4424. Cameron and Siemens Insurance, dedicated to serving you, Highway 24 in Rupert. Right now, let's go to the phone line, and we have with us the president of National Right to Work Committee. Good morning, Mark Mix. How are you, sir?
I'm doing fine, Zeb. Thanks for the opportunity to be on with you.
You know, I got to tell you right up front, Mark, I'm getting really, really nervous. I'm getting really, really mad over what the Democrats, and especially this Biden-Harris, pardon the faux pas, I meant to say Harris-Biden campaign, are trying to say that everybody should be unionized. I'm against it. What are your thoughts?
Well, Zeb, I'm on your team. I'm on your team on this one for sure. Obviously, the Harris-Biden ticket has indicated that they would repeal all the right-to-work laws across the country if they're given the chance. And that means Idaho's right-to-work law, and it means right-to-work laws in 26 other states could be done away with basically a simple repeal of a section of federal labor policy that imposes forced unionism across the country. So there's a lot going on, and certainly the Harris-Biden ticket is interested in placating their biggest supporters, and those are the union officials, not rank-and-file union members by any stretch, Zeb, but the union officials back in Washington, D.C.
You know, one of my dearest friends, and I have him on my program every week on Wednesday from Indianapolis, Indiana, is Dave Bego, and he's written a book about unions and the danger of unions and how they tried to cripple his business, literally. I don't like the arm twisting. I mean, if somebody wants to belong to a union, fine. But to make an arm twisting suggestion that you either join or else, this isn't America that I grew up in.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And Zeb, just to give you some confirmation of your support of Dave, we took that book, The Devil at Your Doorstep, and we sent it to every member of Congress because it was essential that members of Congress understand exactly what's happening out there, not only to rank-and-file workers and employees across the country, but how they target employers like Dave, and they take on, a business and they try to intimidate. That was a mistake, trying to intimidate Dave, for sure, but trying to intimidate an employer to basically give up the rights of employees by signing neutrality agreements or waging these corporate campaigns. And they're really, Dave's battle with the SEIU was a classic battle with a union that wasn't interested in talking to employees per se, but interested in putting so much pressure on an employer that he would capitulate or she would capitulate to handing their workers over. And unfortunately for the SEIU, they picked the wrong guy in Dave Bego.
In your information sheet that you sent me, the right-to-work laws would be wiped out in 27 states, and it would force millions of additional private sector workers to pay tribute to union bosses or else possibly be fired. Holy smokes, do we have enough power to subvert these people and stop them?
Well, if the Harris-Biden ticket wins the White House and Chuck Schumer runs the Senate, And if they repeal the filibuster, which is now a topic du jour, Zeb, then it's just a simple majority vote in the Senate. They already have the votes in the House. They passed a bill in the House back in February, the so-called PRO Act, the Protecting Rights to Organize Act, with 224 votes that would have repealed all 27 right-to-work laws as kind of Article 1 of that bill. So they have the votes in the House. If they get the Senate and they get the White House, then we're pretty confident that they would push for this and really basically reinstitute the federal law. This is interesting because it's the federal law that imposed forced unionism on America going all the way back to the 1930s in the Roosevelt administration. They passed a law that said workers could be fired not because they're the best or the worst or white or black or yellow or whatever, but simply by failing to tender dues to a private organization, a labor union, they could be fired from their jobs. And so the Harris-Biden ticket wants to repeal that section. They've already announced that publicly on several occasions. And yes, at that point, then workers could be fired for simply failing to tender dues or fees to a labor union.
I can't believe this. You know, would you take the time, Mark, to explain to my audience again the dangers of passing the card check forced unionism bill? Explain card check a little bit.
Yes, that was actually part of this so-called PRO Act as well. The second part of the bill was to establish card check union recognition. And really simply, that's kind of what Dave Bego was fighting against in his battle. But what they want to do there is they want to eliminate the secret ballot election. You know, on any given election day, and apparently this year it's going to be a week before, or it's going to be 3 months before or a week after we get to cast votes, which is kind of an interesting problem all in of itself. But instead of going behind a curtain and casting your vote in secret, what union officials want to do is they want to be able to be authorized to collect what they call card checks, and they want to collect a card with your signature on it that says, yes, I'm interested in the union. So what happens, and if you read Dave Bego's book, On the Devil at Your Doorstep, 3 or 4 of these people show up on your doorstep and they say, hey, we think you should be interested in a union and we want you to sign this card. And this just happens to be at 10 o'clock at night, Zeb, when they're standing there, and they've got a couple guys that are pretty big and got big necks and that kind of thing. And basically, if you sign that card, that is a vote for the union. And so what the union does is they collect 50% plus one of the people in the union. So let's say we have 100 people working in a place, and they get 51 of these cards signed by whatever means and by however long it takes to get the card signed, then the union would be representing all 100 employees in the workplace. And Zeb, it's not a stretch to think that 49 of those workers never knew that this was going on, that they never knew there was a union involved or interested or whatever. And because they were never approached it on their front porch on 10 o'clock on a Wednesday night, they didn't know. But 50% plus one had signed the card, and therefore the other 49 are now in the union. That's an outrage, but they want to authorize that and make that the process for unionizing workers across the country.
You know, I don't blame unions for wanting to have more people in the union. I don't blame unions for wanting to have so-called political clout or power, but I don't like the under-the-table holding a Colt 45 at somebody's midsection saying you better join or else.
Yeah, and I don't blame them for trying to sell their product voluntarily to provide really good service to workers so that workers seek them out and actually ask for their representation to amplify their voice. But the idea of going to government and using the force of government to impose this on people is absolutely outrageous. In fact, Samuel Gompers, who is known as the father of the American labor movement, when he came over in the 1890s and the early 1900s, and they established what were voluntary worker guilds, which are unions, basically, then. And he knew that the delegates of the AFL and the CIO were separate at that time, but he knew that the delegates of the AFL were interested in going to government and asking for these powers. And he argued against it vehemently. He said, look, we're stronger if we're a voluntary organization than if we're compulsory. And he knew that once you got government power or asked for government privilege, you were going to be wards of government. And that's why unions have to play politics the way they do, Zeb, because their power is granted by government. Instead of selling a product, they're using the force of government to impose it on workers. That's wrong.
Well, basically, and again, correct me if I'm wrong on my assumption, but once you're in the union, they can control your contributions, and it takes away any kind of individualism. I mean, you might be a Republican. You might want to vote for Donald Trump, but boy, you better keep your mouth shut.
Yeah, Zeb, this is kind of an interesting concept in labor law that, people can understand, the payment of dues or fees, but the one thing that is the really foundational rock of forced unionism in America is this notion of forced association. Unions, when they are certified, whether by card check, by getting 50 plus one of those cards signed, or having a secret ballot vote and having workers say, yes, we want the union in, anyone who voted against the union, anyone who did not want the union, anyone who voted no on the union is now part of the union because the union gets what's called the exclusive bargaining privilege in that workplace, meaning they're the only voice in the workplace. And so an employer can't talk to an individual employee about the terms and conditions of employment. An employee can't talk to the employer about the terms and conditions of employment. And so for hypothetically, if you have someone who comes in and makes 8 widgets an hour, and he goes to the boss and says, hey, look, I'm making 8. Everyone else is making 4. Can you give me a little something here? Can I get a little something for my effort? And if the employer recognizes that and gives something for the effort, that's an unfair labor practice under federal law, Zeb.
Absolutely.
And that's the power of the exclusive bargaining privilege that unions have. They can file an unfair labor practice against an employer who talks to his employees about terms and conditions of employment.
Absolutely. We have another caller with a question. Caller, quickly, you're on the air. Go ahead, please.
Hey, Hoss, this is the chief.
Yeah, real fast.
Yeah, I was going to ask him if he knows what really happened to Jimmy Hoffa.
Okay, Mark, go ahead.
Your guess is as good as mine. We think that maybe in the end zone of Giant Stadium, there's a possibility there. They've dug up a few plots in around Detroit where he was at a restaurant where he got scooped up and taken away in a car. But I don't know. But if you know, please let us know. That's usually a story that pops up about once a year.
There you go. Thank you very much. Mark, I got to ask you this. What is the political clout this year from unions in trying to control the election in 42 days?
Well, they certainly are not, they're not laying down on spending money. They are going to spend what we estimate will be roughly about $2 billion on federal elections and lobbying. We follow their reports. These are the reports that they file with the federal government, whether it be the Department of Labor or the Federal Election Commission. They spend about $2 billion every 2 years. And there's no indication they're slowing down. In fact, the only thing that we're really seeing, Zev, is the disconnect between rank-and-file workers who you earlier pointed out maybe, believe it or not, support Donald Trump. How dare them, right? And the union officials. That gap between the ideologies of the union officials in Washington, D.C., and the rank-and-file workers not only in Idaho, but in Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Ohio, those places, it's growing wider and wider. So where you have workers voting for Donald Trump because he believes in issues they believe in, you have a union hierarchy, if you will, that's out there all in for the Harris Biden ticket.
Let me ask you this in the time remaining here this morning on this segment, and again, my naivete on some of this, I apologize, but unions and the structure of unions and the respect for unions has changed, in my opinion, in the last 50 years. I can remember my dad belonging to a union, working in a factory years ago, and they did good things for the workers, and there was a lot of good things that went on. And then all of a sudden there seems to be so many subtleties under the table that are sinister and dangerous. What happened to unions in this country that they got so dangerous and evil?
Yeah, is that my stepfather was a 32-year member of the Machinists Union, and so I grew up under that kind of umbrella, if you will, as a young man over in Western New York. So I'm with you on that. And back then, back in the 1970s, he was all in. He was a union guy, and the union served him well. At least he thought so. What's happened is the leadership has changed, and the ideological mindset of the leaders has changed. I mean, you have a union official that was the president of the AFL-CIO that was a proud card-carrying member of the Democratic Socialists of America. That's way out of tune with the rank-and-file workers who believe in this country and believe in American exceptionalism. And I don't mean because we're better than everybody else. I mean because this is an experiment in self-government, in individual freedom, in individual liberty. Those are the foundation stones of American exceptionalism. And you have a whole host of union officials, starting with the teachers' union and the government union officials, and now even over into the private sector unions. You have these leaders of the union, and I use that word with my finger quotes, leaders, that are basically all in leftists and so-called progressives. I call them regressives because there's nothing progressive about what they're trying to do when it imposes tyranny over workers and citizens. So So the ideological makeup of the union leadership has changed dramatically over the last 20 or 30 years.
Let me ask you this, and we've got a fading of your voice on the phone, so try to speak as loud as you can, Mark. I would appreciate it. But what about the Republican Party? What about the GOP as compared to the Democrats and the evil left? What are the Republicans doing and or saying in support of what you're trying to promote, the right to work?
Well, Zeb, they're generally pretty scared. They lack the courage to stand up for most principles, and there are a few that do, and we appreciate that, and those are the folks that lead on our fight. But generally, the Republican Party is the party of, we may get where you want to go, but we're just not going to go there that fast, as fast as you want. So we need some more courage. We have a president in the White House that basically doesn't really care about this stuff. He speaks out. He speaks to the people directly. But that's a nice change from the Republican Party that we've seen in the past. I mean, I have been doing this for 35 years, Zeb, and the biggest frustration is people that say they believe in what you believe in and would want to fight for it, but then when they get to a place where they can do you some good, they stop being one of your friends. And that happens a lot in politics, for sure.
You know, you are a refreshing breath of fresh air to come on this program, and I'm going to have you back. Mark, I really appreciate and respect your knowledge. The president of the National Right to Work Committee, Mark Mix, and you are welcome back anytime. Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Zeb. Appreciate it.
All right, sir. God bless. Take care. Really interesting individual, Mark Mixon. I'm going to have him back talking about unions. It's too bad, and I got to remember to mention this to Bigo tomorrow. It's too bad I couldn't get him and Bigo on at the same time. Woo, would that have been interesting? I'm going to have to work on that. We better get a weather forecast on here real quick, and the weather is brought to you by Phillips, Oaks, Goodwin, Crane, and Company, and they are the professionals when it comes to accounting services for the entirety of the Mini-Cassia area and beyond, and they have been for well over 50 years. I mean, we're talking the best in service to you for tax return preparation, tax planning, business consulting, financial statement preparation, retirement planning, all of this and so much more at Phillips, Oaks, Goodwin, Crane, and Company, with offices in Burley and Rupert. They are the professionals. Right now, here's Gina with the weather.
Not too shabby for the first day of fall. Here is a look at your weather forecast. Still going to be a little bit smoky for today, but we are expecting sunny skies, high of about 79, a slight breeze out of the west-northwest at about 8 miles an hour. Tonight, mostly clear skies with a low of 47. Mostly sunny, high of 80 is what we're expecting tomorrow. Partly cloudy and 49 tomorrow night. Thursday, sunny skies and 77. By Friday, partly sunny and 67. That's a look at your weather for Zeb Duran.
She's right. I forgot about that. Today is the first day of fall. My. Somebody please tell me where we put summer. We must have put a box over it or something because it's not here anymore. The weather brought to you by Phillips, Oaks, Goodwin, Crane, and Company. I know these people, and they are the professionals with accounting services to help you, your family, and your business. I urge you to get a hold of them today. They have offices at 1710 Overland in Burley and 625th Street in Rupert. The professionals, Phillips, Oaks, Goodwin, Crane, and Company. Time for some calls. Please give me a jingle on the landline, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. I'd love to hear from you, so give me a call. One thing I want to say, and I wanted to mention this the other day and I got sidetracked, is I'm not at all happy, and I want to make this very, very clear, with the rules and edicts that are taking place with families that have loved ones in hospitals. I find it absolutely ridiculous, and I don't care who calls me and criticizes me, whether it's a doctor, nurse, whatever. I find it absolutely ridiculous that people that have loved ones in the hospital, a spouse, like what happened to me and Deanne, and the edicts are you can't be in the hospital and go see your spouse. Now just think about that for a few minutes. Every single day in the hospital, at the end of their shift, the nurses, the working personnel, the doctors, they all go home. They go home and they mingle with their kids. They go home and mingle with maybe their neighbors. They might go out to eat. They might go play golf. They might play tennis. And then the next morning, they go back to the hospital, and room by room by room, they go in and see their patients. That spouse, i.e. me, went to the hospital to see my wife. And then I went home to no one. I was literally 100 times safer being in that one hospital room with my wife with a mask on and everything else than the multiplicity of people that come in, whether it's cleaning staff, nursing staff, doctors, etc. And I think that this absolute saying, well, you can't get in to see your spouse, you can't be with your wife, you can't be with your husband, is asininely stupid. And I dare anybody in the medical profession to tell me I'm wrong. Calls welcome, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. The personality of our hospitals is that of a morgue. Loneliness, absolute loneliness, with no loved one to hold their hand. And that is beyond the pale. Certainly somebody's got an opinion on this. I'd love to hear it. Give me a call. I want to mention, too, while I have just a moment, about our dear friends at Patterson's Electronics. And they know everything about electronics. I mean, holy smokes. I learned, when Curtis is on the phone with me, I learned so much. And he just zip, zip, zip and goes through everything. The monster cables and the power cords and all the home theater systems. Caller, I'll be right there, I promise. Video surveillance cameras, car stereos and speakers, complete sound systems, all the TVs. It's all there. It's all there at Patterson's Electronics, 421 East Main in Burley. They're open Monday through Saturday, 9 to 6. The number to call, 678-6997. The best, Patterson's Electronics. Caller, good morning. You're on the air. That was an interesting sounding dial tone. Evidently, they wanted to run away and not stay on the line. I'm welcoming calls, and I want to hear what your opinion is. Maybe you think I'm all wet, but I'll tell you what, I was very frustrated with the rules and edicts of hospitals. Good morning, you're on the air.
Yeah, Seb, I agree with what you're talking about, with one exception. If you yourself are sick, you shouldn't go to the hospital.
Wait a minute. I didn't say anything about that. I think that you should adhere. Wait a minute. Wait a minute. Whoa. I think we should all adhere. Caller, we can't talk over each other. Just a minute. I think that everybody should wear a mask. They should really resolve themselves to doing everything sanitary to the point where they're not going to expose their spouse or anybody else at the hospital with anything. But to say that you're keeping your loved one away from your loved one in the hospital and that the hospital staff is safer than you as a sole entity, to me, that's bogus.
Well, I agree with that. I got no argument there. The only exception I make is if I was sick, I wouldn't go, even if it was my loved one, because I wouldn't want them to catch what I had.
I totally agree with you, and I wouldn't set foot in a hospital if I had a cold, if I had a temperature, if I was coughing. That's ridiculous to even insinuate, but I'm telling you there's too many loved ones that are shut out at the front door, and they can't see their loved ones with this idiocy of the doctors can come and go. They can go to lunch. They can go play golf. They can go play tennis. They can be with the kids. They can be with the neighborhood football team, etc., and the next day go back in and go to maybe 8, 10 or so patients' rooms, and they're in more liability of spreading it than I am.
Oh, I agree. There was a nursing home back east that I don't remember which state it was in. When this coronavirus hit, the staff at the nursing home decided they were going to take the extraordinary measure of quarantining themselves so that they were in there and stayed in there with their patients so they wouldn't expose them. Now, that's what I call dedication.
Absolutely.
I agree with you with what the doctors and nurses are doing. They're likely the ones bringing it into the hospitals and to the nursing facilities, and that's where the most at-risk people are, our elderly. My mom is on dialysis. I'm extremely careful with her. Even before the coronavirus hit, I was always very careful to make sure that I didn't get sick, and that if I was around somebody who was sick, I left as quickly as possible.
You know, and I totally agree with you, caller. And I told him I'd jump through any hoops. I mean, if they want me to, I'll lay on a table. They can give me the 5th degree, the 4th degree, the 3rd degree, everything. Check my temperature, make sure that I'm breathing properly. I don't care. But I want to see my wife because it was a life-threatening, critical situation. And to shun me out and say no to me and let a multiplicity of cleaning people, nursing staff, and doctors walk in and out and go everywhere, that is bogus.
May I ask which facility?
I'm not going to say that on the air. Not on the air.
Okay.
All right.
Well, I have a pretty good idea. That's why I choose to go elsewhere.
Well, and I do respect and appreciate your call. You and I are on the same page. We're on the same page, and I respect what you said. But, you know, anybody with half a brain knows that you can't go see a loved one when you're sick in the hospital. I mean, people have got to realize there's limitations.
Absolutely.
Thank you for your call, sir. I appreciate it. Thank you. If I sound frustrated on this, I am, and I always will be. Because I think we've jumped off the bridge with the coronavirus and fears that are unfounded. I think that it's absolutely frivolously stupid to say that a sole entity like me seeing my wife is going to be more dangerous than all the in and out hospital staff. Caller, I got 30 seconds, real fast.
Hey, Hoss, this is the chief.
Fast.
Did you get them snapped up straight and get it straightened out, or did they start treating you worse?
Well, I'll tell you what, I wish I had more time to talk to you about this, Chief, and I will tomorrow if you call in. I'll explain the entirety of it as much as I can. Thank you.
Hey, Hoss, I don't like hospitals, man.
Well,
You know what I'm saying?
I do know what you mean, but...
The guy that goes in there and gets lost or goes out the wrong door and end up in the back of the parking lot, or like try to go through a door and end up in a closet. Man, I'm like a little gray squirrel trying to avoid getting shot. I'm ducking and weaving and moving around. I spent half my life in those places with watching other people.
I know what you mean.
I know you spent a lot of time.
A lot of time in there. I figured it up one time, Chief, and I'll tell you tomorrow if you call in how much. I got to run. The news is next from our great national network, and we'll be back in about 7 minutes. God bless. Oh, here we go. And we are blessed by having the presence of you folks over there can sit down. He brings an entourage with him, and they're looking for a place to sit. They've rolled out the red carpet that he graces his feet on as he rolls into the studio. Dr. History will be here momentarily. Zeb at the Ranch, hour number 3, brought to you by our friends at your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers, all 7 locations, serving you with the best of tires in a very safe, clean environment, along with our friends at Burley Physical Therapy and Rehabilitation at 1263 Bennett Avenue, Suite 2 in Burley, helping you get back to being you. Want to give a great big shout out again to our friends Matt and Kelly Wiggins at a beautiful place for seniors, and you better take this information, seniors, and call them. What a wonderful place. Greystone Crossing Senior Living at 1221 21st Street in Hayburn. Beautiful, brand new 12-bedroom home. I mean, this is something. They furnish 3 meals a day, plus snacks, plus housekeeping and local transportation, and it is really a great place to spend the days with your friends at Greystone Crossing Senior Living. You give Matt or Kelly Wiggins a call today at 650-4979. Also, some other friends of ours that I want you to acknowledge with silver purchases, and the price and the value of silver keeps going up. Help yourself build your own financial security and future through silver purchases with 7K Metals with Lon Hardy at 312-8699 or Sharon at 430-3259. They will give you all the information about a great saving opportunity for you and a valued treasure for your loved ones in the future. Don't forget 7K Metals and silver purchases. You be sure and tell those folks I told you to call. Well, it is Tuesday, and he's kind of like an old ground squirrel. He only comes out on Tuesdays to see what's going on. Good morning.
Good morning,
Dr. History.
Beautiful day out there today.
You know, it is.
It's nice.
It
Yep,
is.
it is. So I've got a few people to say hi to this week.
Okay.
So I want to say hi to Dane, and Dane
I'm
is...
going to ask you to back that mic this way just a little bit. We'll
How's
get
that?
a little fuzz. That's better.
Better, okay.
Yeah, thanks.
Dane, who is an Old West reenactor. I want to say hi to Marianne up in Boise. I want to say hi to Tiffany, who is a custodian in Arkansas, and she listens while she's working. I want to say hi to Richard, who is in England. And
Arkansas?
Arkansas.
I'll bet you she's a Razorback fan.
Probably.
Sweet.
Yeah.
There you go.
Richard in England, and he listens while he's fishing.
Richard in England? How come all these people are having fun things to do while we're working?
I don't know. And then Jeff, he's a listener for a long time, and he sent me a picture of the Sultana, the steamboat that I talked about last week that exploded. So he sent me a picture. And then Todd up in Canada, and he requested a story about Canada. So I think next week I think I've got one that will be a story in Canada.
How about the Royal Canadian Mounties?
Well, this one is more like a gold mine thing that happened up in Canada.
You and your gold mine.
Yeah.
You've got a lot of gold mine
and
stories.
Actually, that goes right into this one.
Oh, what a segue. What a segue.
We're going to talk about the Blue Bucket Mine.
Back it up just a little bit more. I don't know. For some reason, we got a little fuzz there.
Okay, how's that?
Blue Bucket Mine.
And you'll know as I go along. You'll understand why it's called the Blue Bucket.
All right. Well,
so here we go. So an overconfident mountain guide and a lost wagon train in Oregon's early pioneer days could be credited with sparking one of the greatest gold rushes in American history. Now, all of this I'm going to talk about happens in Oregon.
In Oregon.
Yeah. So more than a century and a half ago, about 1845, a group of hardy pioneers were traveling by wagon train from Iowa to Oregon. Well, by the time they reached the Malheur River?
Malheur. Yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
About a mile below the present site of Vail, they had already traveled about 1,500 miles. Tired and ready to reach their destination, they encamped at a spring to rest. Now, some were in kind of despair because they had actually lost several oxen that apparently had been died from poison.
Really?
Somehow.
Bad water?
I don't know, but when one of the members examined a carcass, his hand was infected and he too died.
Oh my.
So the tempers were kind of on edge, and there was kind of some dissension in among the travelers, as you can imagine. One member of the train by the name of Stephen Meek, who had joined the party somewhere in present-day Montana or Idaho, claimed that he had been to Oregon and knew a shortcut.
I got a quick question for you. Okay. Boy, they were taking a big chance back in those days with like the oxen and or the horses, because if they lost their mode of pulling the wagon, they were kind of right there and not going anywhere.
And if they happened to be pulling a milk cow, that milk cow took the place of the oxen.
Oh my.
So now along the trail, many of them had begun to distrust this guy named Stephen Meek. And when the party set out westward from the springs, they split into two groups, one following the known route and the other this Stephen Meek's quote shortcut.
Oh,
all right.
Yeah.
Now the Meek party swung to the south toward a place called Steen Mountain, which is kind of in southeast Oregon country. But Meek didn't really know where he was going, and with the anger of the group, he took off. He fled the wagon train in fear of his life. After only 1 week, dissension within the group caused them to split once again at the headwaters of a place called Willow Creek, and part of the group headed towards Huntington and down the Columbia River, while the rest of the party continued along the Malheur River, which actually starts up around the Idaho-Oregon border.
Yep.
The river does that. Well, along the way, the party met with trouble again as one member was stricken with fever and died, and just a few miles later, several of the oxen were lost.
Oh my.
On August 25th, 1845, 3 of the young men soon went out in search of the stock, and walking all day and well into the afternoon before they came to a small stream. Well, quenching their thirst, they picked up about 15 or 20 little pebbles in the creek that kind of looked a little unusual color, And
now, this was in the Malheur River?
Yeah. Well, a creek somewhere around that
A tributary.
area. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So they picked up these 15 or 20 rocks that looked a little unusual. Well, they found their oxen and they returned to the train, and they started showing the stones to an older man in the train and more of a seasoned traveler, and he said, "That's just copper." Just copper. Okay. Now, when someone asked, was there much of it? And one of the boys said, "Oh, yeah." He said, "We could have filled one of these blue buckets clear full of these rocks."
Holy moly.
Okay. You may see what's coming here.
I do.
One of the train's members, a Mrs. Fisher, kept a single nugget, and they just threw the rest away. And the train continued its journey, leaving behind, like I said, the other rocks or stones. Now, of Stephen Meek, the guy that started out and left, he did make it to the Dalles and returned to the train with a party of rescuers in order to save them, and the wagon train finally reached its destination at the Dalles in 1845.
Wow.
All right. Now, it was prospectors in search of the Blue Bucket Mine. Okay, they realized that this was gold by the time they got to the Dalles.
Yeah.
So
and they were headed west.
Right, exactly. So they'd left it, not really knowing exactly where it was.
Yeah.
Well, so it was prospectors in search of what is now known as the Blue Bucket Mine who discovered gold in a place called Canyon, Dixie, and Griffin Creeks in 1862. And again, this is all in Oregon, drawing thousands of people to Canyon City, Prairie City, and Auburn in search of riches. The Blue Bucket Mine is the most celebrated and publicized mine in the Pacific Northwest in importance.
Did the kids in the train members ever go back?
No.
No kidding.
There's an amateur historian named Lawrence Reba, and he wrote, quote, "It will even outrank such famous mines as the Lost Dutchman and the Peg Leg Smith mines of the Southwest."
So nobody knew then where the gold was?
No.
Oh, my.
Now, let me go back with this Stephen Meek guy. He was the younger brother of a guy named Joe Meek, and he was one of the more famous, he was one of Oregon's founding fathers. He's the man behind one of the state's earliest maps. In 1845, he, perhaps wanting to live up to his brother's name, this Stephen Meek offered to guide these 800 people in 200 wagons on a shortcut across eastern Oregon.
Yeah, their family was known as the Meek Sheep.
The Meek I don't know about that. But, well, as I mentioned, several people died due to the bad water or diseases during the trip, and as water became hard to find, lynch mobs formed twice to take care of Mr. Meek, and a few loyal members hid Meek and his wife, who finally left on their own to get
He'd have been better off not coming back at all.
No, I think he was trying to redeem himself.
Yeah.
Well, Meek was gone when members of the wagon train found the now infamous gold nuggets, and gold wouldn't actually be discovered at Sutter's Mill in California for 4 more years. So not only was nobody in the wagon train expecting to find gold, they wouldn't know what it was if they actually saw it.
Oh, really? They didn't really understand
They
it?
weren't looking for gold. They weren't
Holy
prospectors.
moly.
So, now, in another version of the story, 3 young men went, again, searching for the oxen, and there's several stories about this, and they, like I said, they brought back the colored pebbles and was told it was copper, and it wasn't until this Mrs. Fisher got to California or Oregon that discovered that it was actually gold.
Did the kids and the families keep the gold?
No, they only kept one. This
They
Mrs.
threw
Fisher.
it away?
Yeah. They didn't know what it was. It just so. But there are other versions.
Let's go today and follow their trail.
Follow their trail. That's been done, Zeb. But there are a lot of versions of this discovery story. In another version, children looking for berries found the gold nuggets. In another story, a blacksmith put a nugget on an iron-rimmed wagon wheel and easily hammered it flat. Because gold is soft, you know.
Yeah.
So, in other stories, a toolbox filled with nuggets was lost when it fell off a wagon while crossing a river.
That would have paid for everything.
It would have been great. Now, in one account, the children were asked how many pebbles they saw. They said it could easily fill their blue bucket. Now, here's where we get the blue bucket.
Can you imagine standing out there throwing rocks in the river that are gold?
Gold. So here's where you get the term blue bucket, Zeb. Each company in the large wagon train painted their buckets, their axes, their shovels, and other tools a different color to keep track of them.
Oh.
Which makes sense,
Well,
right?
yeah.
Because you're with all these people, and so you paint your
You've got
stuff.
my blue bucket.
Yeah. So the nuggets were discovered by the Blue Company. That's why they had a blue bucket.
I see.
Now, whether or not gold nuggets were found by members of the Meek wagon train. News about their discovery was not made public for several years later.
Goodness sakes.
More importantly, they didn't know where they were at the time. And the train finally reached the Dalles, as I mentioned, in 1845, and most of those settlers went on to the Willamette Valley.
Now, let me ask you, the interstate, as it rolls towards the Dalles, and I announced that rodeo for years when it was pro, is the interstate fairly close to the same trail that they used?
I believe it is, for those that went through the Blue Mountains.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, the word about the gold find was out by about 1851 when a party searching for another mine called the Lost Immigrant Mine, as it was called, and they found evidence of the wagon train on Wagon Tire Mountain. Okay.
Wagon Tire.
And that's kind of in the central north, kind of towards the Columbia River.
Okay.
3 years later, a guy named Benjamin Heron, a member of the Lost Wagon Train, led a search party that was driven away by Native Americans, so they didn't find it. Now later, in 1857, a guy named James McBride, another wagon train member, so these are guys that were on the train and realizing what was out there. Okay, so
I need you to speak a little more directly. There you go.
How's that?
Good.
He left his home in Eureka, California, and led a search for the creek where the nuggets were found. He returned the next year and did not.
And this is up at the Dalles area?
More east of that, I would think, according to the kind of the rough. East and probably south.
Back towards Boardman?
Or Burns, maybe down that way.
I see. Okay.
Now, 3 years later, again, a guy named Nelson Cochran and 50 men reached this Wagon Tire Mountain, but they were also driven off by Indians. The next year, a guy named Jacob Currier returned with 44 men and searched the Deschutes River.
Yeah.
And they searched all over. They reported finding only yellow rocks that looked like gold.
And they like gold.
Yeah.
I see.
Now, that same year, a man named J.L. Adams got into serious trouble when he bragged in Portland that he had found the lost Blue Bucket Mine.
Why do people do that? He could have kept his mouth shut.
Well, he bragged. He put together a party of 58 men, large enough to fend off any attacks, and they headed for the Blue Mountains. So it's around the Blues that we're talking. And it became apparent Adams didn't know what he was doing.
I see.
A lynch party formed. They weren't real happy with this guy. But,
what did he do wrong to get hanged?
Because he bragged about knowing where he was going, and obviously when they got there, they realized this guy didn't know anything.
So they got a rope?
Yeah.
Oh, my.
But the party ended up just giving him the boot and started home. And on the way, they actually hit gold at a place called Griffin's Gulch, which set off a gold rush near Baker City.
Oh, my.
You know where Baker City is?
Very well.
That's right on the freeway or the road.
2 weeks there one night.
Okay. Now, here we go. A little later, 1862. One of my relatives, a guy named Tom Turner.
Oh, yeah.
I never heard of him. Led a group out of the Willamette Valley to find the lost mine and ended up finding gold instead along the Boise River. So they went clear back east.
We're talking a lot of miles here.
Now, the next year, a guy named Michael Jordan, not the basketball player.
He wore Nikes.
He did. Led 29 men in search of the Owyhee Mountains in Idaho. They never found the legendary site, but they found gold along Jordan Creek and established the Silver City District.
Not going to ask you that. And is that where Jordan Valley, Oregon, right across the border, got its name?
I'm not sure about that. I don't know that. Okay. Now, Stephen Meek himself, after surviving all this, we're back to him. He got gold fever, and in 1868, he led 30 men on what was characterized as a wild goose chase. You'd think they would learn about this Stephen Meek guy, right?
I was going to ask you, how did he get all this support?
Well, I don't know, but he must have been a charismatic guy.
Yeah.
That's all I can say.
Yeah, right.
Now, in 1885, a letter in the Oregonian newspaper set off a mass speculation. Letter after letter came in with various and new accounts of the lost gold find, which by that time had become known as the Blue Bucket Mine.
Yeah.
So now we know it's called the Blue Bucket. So here we go. Years later, 1890, a prospector named White found the grave of a woman from this wagon train who had died along the South Fork of the Crooked River, but she had died...
That's over by Prineville.
Is it?
Yeah.
I wasn't exactly sure, but she died before the nuggets were found, and he ended up searching in the wrong direction. Now, that led to a gold rush at a place called Rattlesnake Creek. No gold was found, and this white guy just disappeared. Don't know what happened to him. Now, here's another famous guy, Charlie Brown. Okay.
Oh, he's got his own comic
He
strip.
does. Charlie Brown, a Canyon City celebrity and founder of the Grant County Historical Museum, joined a search party in 1897. Now we're, quite a few years later.
Yeah.
They found relics they believed came from this lost wagon train between Immigrant and Silver Creeks. Decades later, Brown claimed the Blue Bucket Mine was either in Canyon Creek or Spanish Gulch, and the search for the Blue Bucket Mine continued into the 20th century. A group of prospectors from Spokane, Washington, claimed they had discovered the site near Dale in 1936. Now, I'm not sure where Dale is, but it's all in that kind of northeastern part of Oregon.
Yeah.
So that was 1936.
Okay.
Now, Charles Hoffman relied on a detailed diary kept by a lady by the name of Jessie Harrod. Now, he was a young cattle driver on the Meek wagon train, and he guided a group in a 1974 expedition that carefully traced the lost wagon train's route. And in his book in 1992, this Hoffman guy said he found the lost site, but a close reading reveals that he really never did find it.
I see.
So let me just finish this, and then we can listen to whoever's calling in.
Yeah, we got to call. Hold on. Okay.
So, the gold rush historians, they philosophize about the Blue Bucket Mine, and they have various explanations for its location. Some theories are geographical, naming actual rivers and creeks. Others believe floodwaters long ago buried the site with silt, so it'll never be found. And a few suggest a reclusive miner found the site, panned it clean, and never said a word to anyone where his riches came from. So
there's a lot of gold, maybe, out there somewhere.
Right, but think about this too, Zeb. People named creeks and stuff, and maybe the names changed over the years. Maybe one was called this name back in 1850, and another by 1890 it was something else.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the story of the.
So
the
basically, you're talking about a lot of wild goose chases.
It really is, and other gold was found in other places. As these guys didn't find the Blue Bucket Mine, and maybe it was just a few nuggets and little gold in this one little spot.
Before we take the call, answer this though. Did someone in that wagon train take down in a diary about those kids finding that gold?
Somehow that story came out. Yeah, and I don't know that they wrote about it, but by the time they got to the Dalles and people said, hey, this is gold, then I believe probably the newspapers or somebody would have written about that at that time.
I see. Okay, caller, I'm going to give you about 30 seconds, real fast, please. We're out of time. Go ahead.
Jordan Valley is named after Jordan Creek.
Well,
also, the Owyhee Mountains. Owyhee is the phonetic spelling or old spelling of the islands of Hawaii, and the Owyhee Mountains were named such because there were some native Hawaiian islanders who were lost in those mountains searching for gold. They never did find them, but then the mountains were named the Owyhee Mountains after the Hawaiian prospectors that were lost there.
Well, thank you for your call this morning, and God's blessings for adding that to the story. I appreciate that.
So to the listener there, go to my webpage and under comments, send me more information on that if you would. Just go to dr-history.com and under comments, let me know where you got that information and maybe I can do a story about that.
I have heard that, what he said, and when you said Jordan, the Jordan Creek, way back years ago when I started in the rodeo business, the very first amateur rodeo that I ever announced before I turned pro was Jordan Valley.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well,
a lot of history up there.
Yeah.
There's a story for you right there. All the
Valley.
Different cow outfits and everything up there in that area. Oh, my.
Well, I've mentioned before that there were cattle drives that went right through here along the Snake River.
Yeah.
And at one time, the largest cattle ranch in the world was in the Owyhee area.
Really?
Yeah. Largest.
When you talk about, we got another call. I've got only a minute left. Real fast, caller, please.
Yeah, it's me again. Hey, where you find that is in the fourth grade reader, A Child's Idaho, and those Hawaiian Islanders were brought here by Captain Cook.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very
Dr.
much.
History will look that up. Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. All right. God bless you, man. Thanks. I appreciate that. See the power of having callers. I love
great.
that. I love that.
It is great.
Yeah. You know, there's so much history around this area that we haven't even touched.
Oh, Zeb, I have yet to run out of stories. And after 12 years, Zeb, and 6 years and 330 stories on my webpage, there's not one repeat.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow, that's impressive. Well, there you go, ladies and gentlemen. He's going to want a raise. I can't pay him. But anyway, Dr. History, we certainly appreciate your being a part of the program.
Are you going to double what you're paying me now?
Yeah, exactly. Enjoy all the benefits. Great story. What are you going to talk about next week?
I might try to get this Canadian story in.
Okay.
I'm going to try to get that for our listener.
Yeah. That's what the Canucks say.
Yeah.
Okay. Dr. History, a valuable treasure of information. Thank you. And thanks to the callers, too. I appreciate that. Real quick, before he walks out the door, I'm going to tell everybody before the break about Lee's Furniture, Floors, and More at 459 Overland in Burley. My goodness, Jeff and the crew have got all your great flooring material that you want, whether it's all the carpets or the vinyl plank, whatever. And with the kids in school, it's a great time to get all that taken care of in your house. Don't forget, too, they've got all the Simmons Beauty Rest mattresses for a good night's sleep. And the largest selection of furniture, chairs, recliners, kitchen dinette sets, everything at Lee's Furniture, Floors, and More. And the people that can help you, they know, and they'll help serve you at 459 Overland in Burley, Lee's Furniture, Floors, and More. Right now, we're going to send it back to our main studio. I'll be back in about 3 minutes.
And now, back to Zeb at the Ranch on AM 1230 KVAR. To reach Zeb, call 436-2244 or toll free 1-866-927-4587. And now, here is Zeb.
I appreciate that. Thank you very much, and welcome back to our last 30 minutes. We're on the home stretch, headed for the finish line. And right now, we're going to go to the phone line. And with the Citizens for Free Speech, a gentleman that I absolutely enjoyed the last time he was on my program, Patrick Wood. Good morning, sir. How are you?
I'm having to reconnect. For some reason, that first number, he couldn't hear me.
Okay. All right, good. If you can reestablish that, I'd appreciate it. We've got this gentleman, excuse me, scheduled to come on the air here in just a very few moments about what we're losing as far as our free speech is concerned. And I've had him on the program not too long ago, and I said, I've got to get him back. So he will be on the air momentarily as soon as we establish a new phone line. Quickly, tomorrow on the program, I want to tell you some of the highlights we've got. Indianapolis, Indiana, Dave Bego at 9:06, and we're going to have Daniel Greenfield on our program. Dan Perkins from Florida, a great political analyst, was scheduled for tomorrow, and we've had to change that. He's going in for surgery, and I feel bad. And then Gary Goldman, you know, the man from Boston, Beantown, is going to be on at 10:30. So those are some of the great guests that we have scheduled for tomorrow. Let's check with Sean and see if we've got our interview on the air.
He's having me try that number again because that's his studio line. So just give me one more.
All right, thank you, Sean. Live radio, I love it. I'll tell you what, little glitches every now and then keeps one on their toes. And I appreciate the fact that we've got so many great people on our program this morning. And I want to remind you, too, that coming up on Thursday this week, I'm going to be gone. I've got some medical appointments to take care of, and Sharon is going to be here, and she's going to run the show, of course, with the Chamber Report and Cassia County School Days and everything else. And I really want to appreciate and say thank you to Sharon for all her involvement. Sean, do we have him on the air and ready?
Yep, he's there.
All right, thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, finally we got the connection, and I'm glad because I was really looking forward to visiting with him, with the Citizens for Free Speech, Patrick Wood. Patrick, good morning, sir. How are you?
Good morning. I'm doing fine, Zeb. Thanks for having me on again.
Well, it's my pleasure, and I'm going to start this thing off by saying how I feel about free speech. Every single day, in my opinion, leading up to this election in November, I am seeing more and more of a, not just a wave, but a tidal wave of people on the left that are trying to shut people up like me and shut up opinions and shut off free speech. How wrong am I?
Oh, you're absolutely right. This has been building for a long time, as you know, and it's now turned into a tidal wave. And it's everywhere. It's in every possible community in America, big and small. It's happening to people like you on the radio. It's happened to people in print. It's happened to people walking around in grocery stores who don't want to wear a mask, for instance, and they get crosswise with somebody and get into a big brouhaha.
You know, Patrick, does the general public realize what's really being taken away ever so slowly, kind of like the Abbott and Costello routine years ago, inch by inch, foot by foot, step by step? Do they understand that it's being taken away from them?
I'm not sure most people still understand, but I will say this. Americans, there are a lot of Americans across the country who are finally waking up to this fact that America is in dire straits. And there's no other way to express it, I don't think. But for all of those people like myself and yourself who have been sounding the alarm for years, and they thought we were crazy, and they thought, well, that's just alarmist stuff, and but now when they're seeing it with their own eyes and it's getting into their own pocket, they say, you know what? Remember that guy? His name was Zeb or something. He was right. And so, you know, people are coming forward now to ask the question, well, what can we do now? I hope it's not a day late and a dollar short. But there are a lot of people who are finally getting off their couch and saying, I better do something myself. This is a good thing.
You know, Patrick, let's use the coronavirus as an example. I mean, I sat here in my office day after day leading up to this morning, and I've talked to various people all around the United States and, for that matter, the world, to find out their thoughts on various subjects. And when we have doctors coming onto my program and telling me that their voices have been subdued either on Facebook or on Twitter, or videos of a group of doctors talking about the coronavirus and hydroxychloroquine have been stopped because they've been taken off various news sources, this sounds like Gestapo Germany.
Well, it does. And I have to say, in a microcosm, at least instance by instance, it is. This is like book burning of World War II, where piles of books were just heaped up and gasoline poured on them and burned because they didn't like the content in the books. This is no different. This is the electronic age today, and where books are not really as prevalent as they were 50 years ago. The equivalent of book burning today is simply pushing a button and wiping somebody out of existence on the internet. And this is happening on a regular basis now with anybody who bucks the trend and offers a better explanation of what's going on, like the doctors you speak about and the scientists you speak about. Anybody that fights this crazy narrative going around today is simply canceled. They fall victim to the cancel culture, and they're just X'd out. It's just like somebody pulls out a giant eraser and just erases their name from history. That reminds me of the book 1984, by the way. That's exactly what Winston did. That was his job at the Ministry of Information, was to change history and just rewrite it as it was convenient for the powers that be.
You know, it sounds so clandestine, and it is, and it sounds so deadly, and it is, because it's the ruination of our Constitution and our values as Americans, the First Amendment. And I am absolutely appalled that the younger generation does not see the value in the First Amendment.
there's so much confusion, and civics as a curriculum has not been taught now, I'm sure you're aware, for at least 30 years, probably more in some schools. And so young people today have no understanding of the Constitution, of why it's important, of why we have government in the first place. And because of a lack of education, when other people come in and start whispering in the ear, like the BLM people and the Antifa people and so on, they start whispering their lies into those young ears, and they're totally confused. They have no way to judge whether that is true or not. And so the Constitution, it's meaningless to people. The First Amendment, well, they say free speech is important, but, you know, they see free speech as burning down stores and torching cars and rioting in the streets. That's their free speech. Of course, that isn't free speech according to the First Amendment. It was supposed to be peaceable free speech, for Pete's sake, not, you know, tearing the country apart. But this is the way young people are today.
You know, Patrick, you have vast knowledge of all these stories that are happening not only in this country but around the world. But right now, the United States still is a beacon of hope for all people coming to this country. But if we lose the First Amendment and all of its value, our religious freedoms, our freedom of speech, and then also lose the Second Amendment, I mean, we might as well kiss the Constitution and the values that people died for, kiss it goodbye, because it's never coming back.
Well, it took hundreds and hundreds of years for the Constitution to come to the point where it could be created at the beginning of our country. It would take potentially hundreds and hundreds of years to get freedom and liberty back again if we completely lose it. What most people in America do not understand about our Constitution is that the First Amendment was placed there on purpose. Communication is the fountainhead of all political discourse, period, in a subject. If you cannot communicate, especially with those that you may not disagree with, if you can't communicate in an amicable way to get business done, then there's going to be fighting break out, and there's going to be arguments, and there's going to be potentially bloodshed. And this has been seen throughout history, and we're playing it out again here. The First Amendment is under attack because the enemy knows if we cannot communicate with our fellow citizens and among ourselves, we're doomed. Everything starts with communication. The founders of our country also put the Second Amendment in the second position on purpose because they knew if the First Amendment was nullified somehow in practice, that the backup position was going to be the Second Amendment. And we're at that place right now where we see people are being killed and murdered and shot around the country for their political beliefs, and you know, whether it be at the hands of Antifa, as was the case in Portland recently, or BLM has been the case in executing policemen recently, or attempting to anyway. The weapons are coming out, and the reason is the First Amendment is going to pot.
I would say this, and I'm not at all embarrassed or inhibited to say this, that if Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, or reverse the order according to Kamala and say the Harris-Biden campaign, if they win the presidency and the vice presidency, I think, honestly, and I feel in my heart of hearts, that a program like mine is doomed, and it will be off the air.
Well, there is already a lot of talk about limiting free speech and content on the air and in the print. And as you know, conservative talk radio has been, or I should say talk radio has been dominated by conservative elements throughout our country for a long, long time. That's not so true with print media, but with talk radio, definitely. So talk radio has been a target of the enemies of America for a long time. And you're right. If they ever get the upper hand to completely stop conservative talk radio, they will do it. There's no doubt in my mind.
What are your thoughts in regards to what you hear and what you do every day on behalf of Citizens for Free Speech? I mean, what's a day in the life of Patrick Wood like?
Well, Well, it's pretty chaotic, I'll tell you, at times. I'm very passionate at this point in history about the First Amendment and getting people to communicate again. And I spend almost all my time during the day and even in the evenings working on stimulating people to communicate, to learn how to communicate, to get out and start communicating. This is the only hope for our country at this point. And I've said now for at least 2 or 3 years, people out there, you've had enough education. Quit soaking it up and get out and do something with what you have. You don't need to know you don't need to have a PhD in current events in order to go out and do something useful in your community today. Take what you have and go use it. Put it into effect. Start mixing it up. And I've had our director of training, by the way, Mary Baker, who trains people on communication. She says, if you don't have a seat at the table, you are what's for dinner. And I've never seen a time when that is totally true today. If you don't have a seat at the table in your community and in your neighborhood, whatever, you're on the menu, and it's going to gobble you up if you're not careful. So the time to get up and get out is right now.
Let me ask you, do you have an opportunity? You're very articulate, and you're very motivated for what you believe in. Do you have opportunities to go to various colleges and talk to these college kids that are like nothing more than meek sheep when they get on these college campuses and they're told, oh, you can't say that here. We've got an area over there by those 2 pine trees that you can stand there and say that, but not here. I mean, do you tell these kids to fight back and not take this garbage that's thrown at them?
There are some great organizations that do just that right now, and I'm leaving the campuses to them. They're doing a good job. They're young people. That's not my forte necessarily. Actually, Dennis Prager does a pretty good job of reaching university kids, and that's the story he tells them. So that part of the message is getting out. There are some young conservatives today that are seeing clearly, seeing straight. They want to communicate. They want to take a stand in their community. And my hat's off to these young people. Every time I meet one, I congratulate them. I know several here in a local area in Arizona, and I have the utmost admiration for them, for bucking the trend, for overcoming their lack of education and teaching and being taught, being teachable. And this is the hope of our the next generation, if you will. The young people today are the ones that are going to be running our country. And carrying us into our old age. We better be sure we've got some people out there that are going to be, putting their head on straight every morning, and doing the right thing. But we need a whole lot more than what we got right now.
I couldn't agree more. I want to take the last couple of minutes here, and I want you to discuss about this Chinese virologist. Her name was Dr. Li Mengyan, and she was on Tucker Carlson the other night, and blew the lid off of this COVID-19 as far as being released intentionally by the Chinese government, etc. And I told my wife, I said, I absolutely fear for this woman. I fear for her life, and I fear because of her honesty and integrity, she won't be around long. What are your thoughts?
Well, I can tell you this. She'll never go back to China because she will be disappeared. She was censored. Tucker's episode with her has been thrown off Facebook, and she's been dropped off of Twitter. All pressure around the world, especially from the Chinese, is being brought to bear to shut her up. I'm glad that she's not the type of woman. She is small and diminutive, but she has a fierce spirit, it would appear, and she doesn't shrink back very easily. So I'm hoping she stays the course and just keeps blabbing and telling her story, and I hope people will listen to her. She is not the only one, however, that has blown the whistle on China. There have been several top virologists around the world that have said exactly the same thing as what she has said. And guess what? The same thing happened to them as happened to her. They got canceled out of the discussion. They got removed from Twitter, from Facebook, from Google, and they basically became non-entities. And I have to say, many of these are absolutely the top echelon of virologists in the world, and they're gone. They're still alive, but you understand what I'm saying.
Absolutely.
Absolutely gone.
What would you tell my audience in a final parting shot here this morning, Patrick? All of us. We should speak out, speak up, and not be intimidated. That's my thought. What's yours?
Well, that's true. And, you know, my grandma told me when I was a young kid, you can catch more flies with honey than you can with vinegar. There's some wisdom to that. I'm learning that now as I get a little bit older, that proper communication will defuse many people that want to fight with you. And if you can calm them down and bring them down off of the fear mountain that they happen to be climbing, most Americans all of a sudden become teachable and reasonable, and they say, well, let's have a discussion about this. This is what we need to do in America today. We need to stop throwing daggers and eggs and whatever else we can throw. And we need to realize we Americans are the only ones who can save our country. The government's not going to do it. The feds won't. The state won't. Your city council won't. No, it's up to individual citizens to get together, quit fighting, and start talking.
Absolutely.
That solves a multitude of problems.
You're the best at having on the air on this subject. Thank you. Citizens for Free Speech, Patrick Wood. You got to come back, sir. I'm going to call you. God bless you for your time.
My pleasure. Take care, Jim.
All right, sir. Thank you very much. Boy, I enjoyed that segment. Thank you, Patrick Wood. By the way, don't forget, I got to hurry. I'm running late, and that's nothing new. Edith's Cafe at 208-878-2248. That's their number. They do catering. Oh, my goodness, they've got delicious food. They're right there at 144 East Highway 81 in Burley, right across from the golf course. They're open Tuesday through Thursday, 11 a.m. to 8 p.m., Fridays and Saturdays, 11 to 9. I mean, pick up the menu. Wow, from burgers to steaks and everything in between. Absolutely delicious. Don't forget, the name Edith's Cafe, 144 East Highway 81 in Burley. They're waiting to serve you. Our weather forecast brought to you by Scarro's Meats. Don Scarrow and the crew serving you at 331 North Road, Jerome. You can go to their website, scarrowsmeats.com, and check out all the delicious meats. Or give them a call, 324-7657, from the hams to the pork ribs, to the sausages, to all the flavors of the bacon, to the bratwurst. Oh, boy. You're going to love all the meats from Scarro's Meats in Jerome. And right now, here's Gina with the weather.
Not too shabby for the first day of fall. Here is a look at your weather forecast. Still going to be a little bit smoky for today, but we are expecting sunny skies, high of about 79, a slight breeze out of the west-northwest at about 8 miles an hour. Tonight, mostly clear skies with a low of 47. Mostly sunny, high of 80 is what we're expecting tomorrow. Partly cloudy and 49 tomorrow night. Thursday, sunny skies and 77. By Friday, partly sunny and 67. And that's a look at your weather for Zebeth Ranch.
Oh, I appreciate it, Gina. Thank you. Scarro's Meats, Don Scarrow and his crew bring you the weather. And, of course, they're over at 331 North Road in Jerome. And the number to call, 324-7657, for all the great meats. Changing the way we eat, one delicious bite at a time. Scarro's Meats. Wow, we've had a full program this morning with a lot of great people, and I appreciate each and every one of them. And it'll be the same tomorrow on Zeb at the Ranch. Our major sponsor, of course, your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers, and I am proud of them. They do a phenomenal job, all 7 locations, in serving you, making sure you're driving on safe tires, making sure that you've got the best in brakes and front end alignment, shocks and struts and batteries. They want you to drive safely, and they really do care. With the best in service to you. And by the way, speaking of service, here we are in harvest, and boy, if you got trouble on the farm or at the dairy, then you just call them and they'll send out one of those big repair trucks and get you off and running. No time at all. The best, working for you, your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers, James in Buell, Dan on Pole Line in Twin Falls, Lane in Rupert, Mike in Jerome, Dave on Blue Lakes and Twin, the Twist family over in Paul, and my buddy Trent on Overland in Burley. Yep. the best, your Magic Valley, Les Schwab Tire Centers. That's going to do it for today. We're going to wrap it up, put it back on the shelf, and open it up again tomorrow morning at 8:06. Zeb at the Ranch. We always say at the conclusion of our program, the way things were are the way things ought to be. But the 4 words that mean the most to me: in God we trust. Thank you for all your kind comments and your emails and everything else. Zeb at the Ranch will see you tomorrow morning at 8:06.